Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. My name is TCaptainX, and today we're going to discuss the top 5 SMGs in Call of Duty Warzone Season 4 Reloaded. Since my last video on this, there's been lots of buffs and nerfs, so a lot has changed in the SMG meta. What's different about this video compared to others you might see like this is that I'm going to be backing up my claims with stats thanks to TrueGameData.com, as well as showing in-game clips of each build. I won't necessarily be ranking these 1 through 5, as ultimately it depends on your own playstyle and preferences, but I will kind of give you some of my own opinions. I want to start with an honorable mention to a non-Vanguard SMG, and that's the Cold War MP5, which did receive a small buff in the mid-season update to its range. The strengths of the MP5 are its solid movement speed and strafe speeds, and especially its very fast sprint to fire times, allowing you to quickly pull your gun down and shoot if you're caught in a sprint. What separates the MP5 from the Vanguard guns is simply its slower time to kill though. Its chest TTK is comparable to others like the Blixen and Marco, but its combined TTK, which factors in all body parts, is considerably behind my top 5 SMGs. So this MP5 build focuses on mobility, and we actually don't run a barrel, but because of that, you actually end up getting these really clean iron sights as long as you're using basically any blueprint. So blueprint plus no barrel gives you those iron sights. For the rest of the build, I do go with the 50 round drum, which is the largest mag. I don't recommend with the fast mags on the Cold War guns, as this does hurt your aim down sight speed, and I don't think it's a good option to use. Bruiser grip and Tiger Team Spotlight help a lot with mobility. The Raider stock has got to be your go-to attachment on all your Cold War SMGs because this drastically reduces our sprint to fire time and also helps our strafe speeds quite a bit. You got 2 options for the muzzle. You either go agency for a little bit better range and recoil control, or you go for the sound suppressor, which keeps your gun a little bit more mobile. Now to get in the actual top 5. First, the most underrated SMG in my opinion is the Sten from Vanguard. The Sten is simply all around good. Its strengths being the second fastest combined time to kill of my top 5 and solid mobility as well. I'd say its weakest points are a slightly lower damage per mag with its somewhat fast shooting 50 round mag, meaning dealing with stacking trios or quad teams can be a bit more difficult, and that you also have to run hollow point to get these better TTKs, meaning you can't use subsonic and that you'll be pinging on the minimap when shooting. Its recoil is moderate, but the build can be modified at the sacrifice of some mobility if you prefer. So if you want less recoil on the Sten build, what I recommend is switching the underbarrel from the Mark Skeletal to something like the hand stop, and then switching the rear grip to something like the stippled or the hatched grip, both being good options. In order to get this fast TTK that it has, number 1, we always go with the recoil booster on all of our Vanguard SMGs because this directly increases fire rate, therefore it making a better time to kill. The SA65 rapid barrel is what we're going to use for that better fire rate. We do go with the 50 round drums. The 36 is a good option, but not very good for trios and quads. Hollow point, like I said, you do need this to get these better TTKs. Both acrobatic and quick help quite a bit with our mobility. The Gawain Parastock I think is the best option because this helps both sprint to fire and movement speed. And then lastly, the Slate Reflector, or you can just go with the iron sights on this gun as well. Next, we've got the king of TTK, which is still the Type 100. If you play solos a lot, I'd say this is your best option simply because it kills faster than everything else. It can be tricky to use in trios and quads though due to its lower damage per mag with its 36 round mag. The mobility is decent and the recoil can be pretty manageable if built correctly. So in order to get the great time to kill of the Type 100, we number 1 go with the recoil booster and then the rapid barrel. Next, you have to use the 36 round mags, and lastly, you do need hollow point, meaning you will ping on the minimap since we can't use subsonic. In order to get the recoil manageable, if you go with the strife angled and hatch grip, which help with horizontal recoil, this really smooths the gun out, makes it much more manageable. I go with acrobatic and quick to help with our mobility. The Wawabachi skeletal stock helps with sprint to fire and movement, although you could use the weighted stock for much less recoil at the penalty of losing some mobility. And lastly, I normally just use the iron sights on these, or you could just go with a Slate Reflector. Next, we've got the good old H4 Blixen. That has been nerfed multiple times, but it's still a top tier SMG. It checks all the boxes for a meta SMG. Solid TTKs, although it does require at least 1 headshot now to get its former chest shot TTK. Good mobility, low recoil and decent range, and high damage per mag. There's 2 different barrels I recommend. The Carlson barrel in orange is best for strafe speed builds, but has much less range than the Bergstrom barrel in purple. The Carlson barrel also gives a moderate amount more recoil. Personally, I lean towards the Bergstrom barrel, but in very close quarters, the Carlson is superior. So this is my Blixen build that has the Bergstrom barrel, which makes it have very low recoil and better range. This also has very good overall mobility. So the recoil booster in the Bergstrom barrel, to get the better mobility, we go with the Mark Skeletal, taped grip, and remove stock, as these all help our movement speed. 54 round mag, which does give us a pretty high damage for mag. Subsonic, that way we don't ping on the minimap. You do not need hollow point to change your TTKs for this. Both fleet and quick help our mobility. And then lastly, the slate reflector. If you want to run a strafe build, change this to the Carlson barrel, the under barrel to the SG98 compact, and change the rear grip to the leather grip. This, as all of these are going to boost our aim walking movement speed, and if you want, you can switch fleet for steady, which when you're firing, it increases our strafe speed. One thing I do want to point out is a lot of people tend to ask about the Johnson barrel, as it says it increases damage. It does, but it does not end up changing any of the TTKs. Therefore, it's really not worth it in my opinion. And then we have the Marco 5 SMG. The Marco was incredibly dominant until its damage nerf, but with the Blixen also receiving a near identical damage nerf, it's statistically very similar to the Blixen, both requiring one headshot to get the same combined TTK. My preferred Marco build does have slightly better mobility than the Blixen though. What I like about the Marco is its faster fire rate makes the gun feel much smoother and more forgiving. The 64 round drum allows for some high damage for mag and is great for dealing with stacking teams. So this is my preferred loadout, which focuses on overall mobility. We go with the recoil booster in the Imerito 342 barrel. One thing I do want to point out about this is it actually increases your headshot damage, although it doesn't say so, which is why we end up getting a better combined TTK. And this barrel gives the gun very low recoil, very easy to use for any level player. Next, the Mark Skeletal and taped grip. Both help our mobility. The Imerito FR also is going to help with our movement speed. I go with quick for perk 2 per usual. Frenzy is what I use for perk 1. This kind of acts like quick fix for you get a kill, it replenishes your health, although gung ho is a good option as well, or momentum, or you could do the akimbo build as well if you want. The 64 round drum is going to be your best option. We do not need hollow point, so we can run subsonic. And then the slate reflector. Now, if you want to run a strafe build, you can change this from the Mark Skeletal to again to the SG98, change your tape to the leather, and then change your stock to the body HF folding, and you've got a very good strafe speed as well, with still good overall mobility as well. And if you want just a pure max movement speed build, if you change the our first build and go back to the Perfetto Lesta, which helps movement speed, the movement speed on this is insane. And then you could also change this to the 36 round mags, which helps your movement speed even more. And I believe this is the fastest mobility gun in the entire game. And to wrap things up, we've got the Arma, which has rise in popularity drastically after the Blixen and Marco nerfs. The Arma dominates for a few reasons. Number one, it's got a faster TTK than all of these guns except the Type 100, but it's got way more damage per mag than the Type 100. It also doesn't require a headshot to achieve its combined TTK like the Blixen and Marco do. So for the beginner player who isn't the best at landing headshots, the Arma will end up killing much faster for you. My build also features very easy to control recoil along with fast strafe speeds. The main downside of the Arma is its overall movement speed. Its sprint speeds are much slower compared to all of our other options today. But in my opinion, its other strengths make up for this. So this build here was actually what I set my PR with. And number one, we go with the recoil booster per usual. The Imerito 550 barrel helps drastically with recoil control. Now you will see a lot of people using the short barrel, and I think this is a good option and makes our mobility and our aim walking movement speed a little bit better, but it's a lot harder to use at range. And I think this option is just so much better in my opinion. For that strafe build, we go with the SG98 compact barrel again. We are going to use the 72 round mag, which gives us a very high damage for mag. Don't need hollow point, so we can go subsonic. For the rear grip, you either go groove grip, which is going to act like the leather for that better ADS firing speed, or you can also go leather grip. What I like about the groove grip though is this actually helps our horizontal recoil control, which smooths this gun out a little bit. Next, I am using Vital. Now, Vital doesn't actually change the TTK according to true game data, but if you look at just the shots to kill, if you hit all chest shots in one headshot, having Vital does decrease the TTK in just that scenario. So I use it, but there are other options. You could go steady for better strafe speed, sleight of hand, hard scope for better recoil, several options there for you to choose from. quick per usual to help with that mobility. If you're going a strafe build, definitely go with the Emerito TA Skeletal, as this helps with that, or you could go with the SA Folding for a little bit better movement speed, and then the Slate Reflector. Now, one thing I will point out is you can change this to the Body 315 barrel, which helps with damage, and then switch this over to Hollow Point. And this build has some incredibly fast TTKs, but it's much harder to use, and without the other barrel, the recoil is pretty tough to control. If you force me to pick my favorites, I'd probably say it's between the Marco and the Arma Guerra. I love the Marco's overall mobility and low recoil, but the Arma just has the better TTKs, and I also love the strafe speeds. I'll leave a link in the video description to this comparison on True Game Data if you guys want to look at some of the stats more yourself. And also, this video here is my PR with my Arma Guerra that had an absolutely insane endgame clutch because of that Arma Guerra build. So guys, if you enjoyed the video and you found it helpful, consider liking and subscribing if you want more of this. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.